Oh, ho, ho, ho. Ho, 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 ho. Well, let's see how this goes. Happy Good Friday. Oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know that something wasn't right here? Man, Jack Black's charisma. You've got to love that kind of charisma. You know, that kind of charisma can be used for good things. Although, maybe it could have been used for better things in regards to this film. But you know what? Jack Black's charisma definitely elevated this film because, as you can tell by the title of this video, this film that I'm reviewing doesn't quite hold up compared to its predecessors. I am of course referring to Kung Fu Panda 4. Now, to be fair, Kung Fu Panda 4 does indeed make thematic sense to exist when you think about it, as explained in a previous popular video that I've made regarding Kung Fu Panda. However, as you can tell by the way I'm going with this review, what it all boils down to is execution, and this movie feels very by the numbers, very samey. In fact, some people may say it's playing it a little on the safe side in some ways, maybe a little bit too fan servicey, and that it focuses too much on humor, which can get quite archaic at times. It is a very by the numbers film, and there is a lot of missed potential here. The villain needed further development. The plot, I mean, as well explained as it is, probably could have had some more development, especially with the way they developed the villain. In fact, this film should have been longer. I know that the Kung Fu Panda movies are traditionally about 90 minutes or so long, so it would make sense for them to follow a formula that works for the franchise. But at the same time, they recently had their success in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
I am Puss in Boots. This is gonna be fun.
Which was, what, 2 hours long? Fairly long for Western animated film standards. A lot of people had high expectations ever since Dreamworks has been going through this renaissance period, if you will, with innovative new animation style via The Bad Guys and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And recently, Dreamworks has been having a little bit of a flop. I mean, they've certainly hit their high point with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which people are still talking about, as well as The Bad Guys, and arguably a few other productions that Dreamworks have made. I've heard there's a firm following of Ruby Gillman despite its box office failure. People have had some mixed reception towards the Megamind TV movie sequel, although I have heard that the recent Trolls movie was actually fairly decent. So it's an interesting period of time that Dreamworks is going through. It's clear that they're going through a very experimental phase, and they want to bring us back to the Kung Fu Panda franchise, a franchise which has definitely hit its peak, but at this point feels very by the numbers. But that does not mean... But all this to say, that does not mean that Kung Fu Panda 4 is a terrible movie. I would not personally call Kung Fu Panda 4 a terrible movie. I know other people online are saying, oh, this movie's a disappointment, oh, you should not go see this. I'd say this is worth seeing with your families. Like, if you're going in expecting just a fun family film to watch around this Easter time, then yeah, you go ahead. Whilst this film could be fun to watch with families, if you're going in expecting peak Kung Fu Panda quality, you're going to be disappointed. However, given how much success Universal, who owns both Dreamworks and Illumination, is getting as of late, I would happily watch Kung Fu Panda 4 again compared to any of the other mediocre schlock that Hollywood seems to be churning out these days. In fact, I would rather watch Kung Fu Panda 4 again than watch any of modern Disney's woke schlock, like what they did with Wish. Now, Wish was not the worst film I've ever seen, but man, I would say Wish is an even bigger disappointment than Kung Fu Panda 4, so just keep that in mind. So, I've said all the bad things about Kung Fu Panda 4, especially in regards to the fact that the villain needed more development compared to previous installments, but the film is definitely not without its merits. The humor is aplenty in this film. This is a very funny film, even if it does get a bit archaic. The laughs that this film brings, it's light-hearted family fun. Dreamworks definitely takes advantage of their creativity with some character designs, as well as some scenarios. There's several moments when I was laughing out loud, and there's one scene in particular that I thought was really funny, and it involves a chase scene in the midst of a city, and the scene is actually so funny, I'm not actually going to give away the full details, but let's just say it involves Po and Zen running through a shop away from the authority of the city, and the way they go through the shop, it's really funny, especially the fact that all of them interact with it in the same manner. I thought that was really funny. What else did I really like? There are plenty of thematic details at play here in regards to identity, which I perceived before going to see the film, in regards to self, which another commenter that I've interacted with has pointed out, in regards to change, which is mentioned explicitly in the film. This film seems to be delving into the lesson that we can't stay the same forever. It's kind of similar to Puss in Boots' Last Wish in a way. So I suppose maybe DreamWorks' Renaissance is about the company acknowledging that we can't remain the same forever. And at some point we got to pass the torch to another generation. So that's interesting to delve into, because Po seems very hesitant to give up his role of the Dragon Warrior, kind of in a similar manner to how Puss was hesitant to put down the legend of Puss in Boots. The thing is, if we remain in the same position all the time, then we're never going to have much room to grow as individuals. When we start off as children, life seems to be this infinite adventure with vast potential, but as we grow up as adults, yeah, being a child was great. However, being an adult involves overcoming obstacles you never would have thought you would have overcome before. Being an adult means taking on new responsibilities to help people out and to support the next generation. And that's where Po finds himself. He's finding himself in a position where he has to find a new successor. The film does rather humorously mention this sort of thing, but this film has plenty of interesting proverbs, albeit very food-related proverbs, which I found quite charming and funny. I think the most profound one comes from Po's adopted dad, Peng, in which he says, and I'm paraphrasing here, if things remain the same flavor all the time, then it's going to become stale over time. If you change the flavor, then, well, variety is the spice of life. I mean, that's a very inspirational thing to say, because as much as people would like to keep things in a certain way forever in this life, things are going to change. Some things may even become dated, and if we experiment with new tastes and new things, then we open up to more opportunities and more room to grow, and I guess that makes sense on a nutritional basis. And I suppose if I was to make a food proverb in regards to this film overall, I would say it has all the right ingredients, but it just needed more salt and probably a bit more garlic. Now I'm the one coming up with the food proverbs. Speaking of food, my lab for Good Friday. I timed that perfectly. The bell rang. Nice lamb with some good bean salad. Happy Good Friday. If there's anything else I could say about the film, there's a lot of missed potential. They should have developed the villain. I mean, we had the previous villains where there was Tai Lung, who was brought up in a distorted manner by Shifu in a rather tragic way, and older people can pick up on this especially. Lord Shen, my personal favorite villain, had this tragic backstory of being a genocidal campaigner who then got rejected by his parents. And Kai at least had a relationship with Oogway in the past. And the Chameleon, she explains that she was too short to be fully accepted into martial arts training. In her anger, she decided to not use the hard way, but rather the easy way out of delving into the dark arts of sorcery, which is thematically appropriate to the theme of taking the hard way, of changing and passing on the beacon to the next person, and also harkens to the fact that the chameleon is, while she changes on the outside, she's afraid to change on the inside, whereas Poe learns how to overcome that fear, and that is ultimately why Poe is able to defeat the chameleon. The chameleon villain really needed more time to be developed as a villain. Also, speaking of villains, you're telling me that you brought back Lord Shen and Kai and not let them have a scene of dialogue with Poe in regards to how far Poe has come as a dragon warrior? You allowed that for Tai Lung. Why not do so for the other major movie villains? People in the comment section below, please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but there's some Kung Fu Panda spin-off media on Netflix, specifically 3 TV series. I've heard there were plenty of unique villains there. To those of you who've possibly seen those shows, I have to ask you a question. Did other villains that appear in Kung Fu Panda 4, did they previously appear in the Kung Fu Panda spin-off media series? If so, that is awesome. If not, that's another missed potential. Because there was another bit of dialogue implying that Poe has fought all kinds of demons and demigods and so on and so forth. Implying that this is nothing new. This is a Chameleon Sorceress who can shapeshift is just the latest new opponent for Poe to face, and that thematically harkens back to a new insecurity that Poe has to overcome. They could have delved more into the Chameleon's backstory as well. I mean, given the fact that Dreamworks was able to make a 2-hour-long film with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, they could have had more time to flesh out the villain. I think the movie as a whole could have worked with all that we have seen in it. It just probably needed more scenes. Yeah, I think having more scenes probably would have fixed it, but I guess even then, people would have said, oh, the franchise is running stale a wee bit. But I suppose if you put more scenes to extend the film, then you could have more character development, delve more into the thematics, and further justify the reason for the movie franchise's existence. Like, seriously, like, it's not too late, Dreamworks. I mean, maybe you could go out of your way and pull off a Zack Snyder and make a director's cut for Kung Fu Panda 4. It's possible. I mean, after all, just as you say in the film itself, variety's the spice of life. I know I practice that with the food I eat. Overall, what do I think of Kung Fu Panda 4? I would not call it a waste of time. Not at all. I'd say if you're looking for a fun film to go to this Easter time, then yes, do bring your families and enjoy it. But if you're looking for peak quality Kung Fu Panda content, I'd recommend Kung Fu Panda 2 in regards to what I would consider to be peak Kung Fu Panda quality. Although, speaking of peak Kung Fu Panda quality, for some strange reason, when I put up a poll on who you consider to be the best Kung Fu Panda villain, most of you picked Tai Lung as opposed to Lord Shen, who myself and other people would consider to be the superior Kung Fu Panda villain. So what gives? People in the comments, please justify, why is Tai Lung a better written villain than Lord Shen? I'm genuinely curious. But still, the mediocrity of Dreamworks is so much better than the woke schlock from modern Disney. That's sad, but it's true. I give Kung Fu Panda 3 7 out of 12. Probably. I may change my mind later, but you know what? The film did still have its laughs, still had its fine comedy and its timing and its action. Lots of great fight scenes, lots of creative visuals. So, not a waste of time, but at the same time, Dreamworks has done better in the past. So, what do you think of the Kung Fu Panda 4 film? And do you enjoy some nice cooked lamb like I do? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm eating lamb. Is that a concern for the animal residents of Kung Fu Panda? Then again, Dreamworks does own VeggieTales, so you might ask the same thing for VeggieTales. Let's not think about this too long. I mean, after all, the Kung Fu Panda residents have to eat fish at some point, right? Circle of life, baby. ScotsThinker signing out. Have a good Friday. Bon appetit. God bless you all.